Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his faults between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. And if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and as a publican. Verily I say unto you, whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again, I say unto you, that if 2 of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. That is Matthew chapter 18, verses 15 to 19. A lot of people get this wrong. I think if you see it from a contextual perspective, from reading the narrative and understanding the narrative, and you can explain the narrative, I think you're on your way to becoming a teacher in the world. Not a spiritual teacher, but a teacher of the word. You're on your way to becoming a priest. You haven't seen the spiritual value of this yet, but you can decode it from an understanding perspective. You can read the narrative and follow along and understand and explain properly what is actually happening here with what the author is saying, what the author has written down and left behind for us. I do think that a lot of people get this wrong. They miss out on stuff. They concentrate more on whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. That is a spiritual experience, and that is the spiritual message in this. The rest all ties in together in the storytelling fashion. It's a narrative that the author has put together, and actually in chapter 18 here, it goes all the way back to verse 3. Starts at verse 3, and I think the message pretty much ends around verse 19 and 20. But a lot of people get stuck on verses, where is it? Verse 18. I think a lot of people get stuck on verse 18, and a lot of people take it to mean, they interpret it to mean that heaven is a place where everything that you store on earth will be found in heaven. Therefore, let's store whatever we can on earth: riches, wealth, love, passion, hate, this and that, and we'll find all of this stuff in heaven. No, that's not what this verse is talking about. This verse, let's take it from a contextual perspective first of all. All right, this verse here is about conflict, and it's about forgiveness. It's about identifying the mistakes of another, not judging that other person, but helping them rise above their mistakes through forgiveness. I think a lot of the Bibles nowadays, they also put in brackets where you could find this in the Old Testament, and they usually go to Deuteronomy, I believe. I don't know right now. I'm assuming it's Deuteronomy, where it's an eye for an eye. And if you can't reason with one person, or if the judges can't make sense of it, or the law can't make sense of it, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth type of thing. This King James version that I pulled up doesn't have that. But when I was scouring through the Bibles, the other Bibles, the NIV, the multitude of Bibles that are available to us, they usually have in brackets where you can find it in the Old Testament. But do you really need to find it in the Old Testament? Because this is pretty much taking you into the law and then bringing you out of the law to show you what you can do if you can't reach an agreement with someone that has either hurt you or someone who has hurt another, or etc. And you can't make them understand that a change would benefit them. And you're talking to them about forgiveness, and you understand forgiveness, and you're willing to let bygones be bygones and just forget all about it. I think you could definitely see the Old Testament here, especially starting around verse 15. Moreover, if thy brother trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between him and thee alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. This is an Old Testament saying. People haven't come to the revelation of Jesus Christ yet, and yet it plays out here wonderfully. It takes you back to the Old Testament to show you that this is the law. This is the conflict between families, friends, neighbors, strangers, lovers, etc. This is the conflict that's taking place, and someone trying to help lift up the other person who may have something against them personally, or may have something against someone else in their life, whatever challenges or discrepancies have arisen in their life, But if you go to, after that, if we go to verse 19, again, I say unto you that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. Now, this is a manifesting verse that everyone in the spiritual community grabs out of the Bible, and there's so many in the Bible, and they're wonderful for transforming your life, and they're wonderful for bringing into your life the revealing of what you had set in motion. But this manifestation, and I really hate this word, but this revelation here, this revelation of if two agree upon touching anything upon earth, it shall be done for them by Father in heaven. This goes right back to verse 15. Concerning the conflict between brothers and trying to make some sense or share your sense and hopefully gain your brother back through him coming back to his senses and understanding the conflict doesn't matter. Forgiveness is all that matters. It doesn't matter if you have done it a gazillion times I will forgive you until you understand forgiveness. In verse 19, it shows you that if two people agree on one thing, if two people reach a conclusion, an amicable conclusion to this conflict and whatnot, it shall be set in stone. It shall be automatically done. Forgiveness is not even thought about. It's just automatic. It's innate. It's automatically done. And what the two people agree upon, they shall have. They shall have, and it shall be done for them. As much as it is about, creating the life you want through the creative power, it's also showing you that creative power can resolve issues, can help stifle conflicts, can help put an end to disagreements and disputes. Using this principle in order to save your relationship and save your companionship and save your brother or your sister is the proper context of the narrative here and how Matthew has it laid out for us. You can grab this verse, as I said, and take it upon yourself and manifest things. You can also go beyond in this verse, and I've only heard one person talk about it, and that's Neville Goddard, where you yourself and your spiritual self come to agreement as touching upon anything on earth. Your divine self hears the communication. Yourself speaks the communication. Both of you agree on the outcome of the communication, and it shall be done for you. So you don't need 2 or 3 people because you have 2 witnesses with you. You have yourself in the world, and you have your divine self that hears you, always hears you, and is always listening to you. And through your spiritual awakening, obviously through spiritual awakening, through the spiritual understanding and revelation of this, you can do great things. You can use the creative power within you, communicate with you, as it says in the Psalms, communicate on your bed, and create an outcome for yourself. But if we were just strictly going through the narrative and the context of what is written here, you really have to go back to like verse 3 and see what it says about little children. And it's telling you these conflicts are meaningless. They're pointless. You have to become like little children. You have to humble yourself. Little children love everybody and love everyone around them and love other little children. They do not know disagreements, disputes. They do not know arguments, not being satisfied. They are fulfilled and joyful and filled with love, and they love one another. This verse is from verse 3 right up to verse 15 is showing you through the eyes of a child and how a child humbles themselves and how a child is and just loves naturally and unconditionally, that there is no need for disputes in the world and it's foolishness and it's nonsense. But if you do come to a dispute like that, remember your childhood. Remember how you were as children, bonded like friends, and then nothing could break the bond between you. And then you also have, when it comes to this verse here, you have verse 18, which is explained on so many different levels, but I don't know if anyone has ever tied in the spiritual message with the natural message. But verily I say unto you, whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again, as I said in the beginning, it's not about accumulating a wealthy outlook or a wealthy lifestyle, knowing that that wealthy lifestyle will carry on into heaven. There is no need for a wealthy lifestyle where you already are in heaven. There is only the chase and the seek of that in the amnesia, in the sleepwalk, in the fog, in the separation, and in the world. That's the chase of it in the world, to become something, to accumulate something, to have something. But it doesn't imply that that's what's going to be in heaven, because heaven is rich already, and everyone in heaven is a gazillionaire. There's no need for money. Everyone is wealthy. Everything is free. There is no such thing as taxes upon taxes upon taxes upon taxes upon taxes for the sake of accumulating wealth in someone else's pocket. Taxes are they're not necessary. Wealth is unnecessary. If we live spiritually, and it can't be done here on earth, but I'm saying hypothetically, if we live spiritually, there is no need for money. We would give to one another. We would have plenty. We would share everything from our arts and crafts and our hobbies and whatnot to our understanding of how things work on an industrial level, on a level of an educational level, professor level, and we would give all of this knowledge and all of this wisdom, and we would pass it around back and forth, that there would not be a need for money. There would not be a need to charge for electricity, when obviously electricity can be free. If this world were the world that you actually live in, that you are unaware of right now, everything would be free. Everything from creativity to some sort of special knowledge, and someone who is proficient and a professor and some kind of teacher in the concept of how things work. And we would be passing it along and sharing with one another. We would be no need for homeless people whatsoever, because we would freely build homes from the forestry around us, and also from plenty of resources that we haven't tapped into yet. And we would build for one another. We would live with one another. We would feed off of one another, freely given, and there wouldn't even be a thought about it. And money would not even be an issue. And I address this in this point because I know a lot of people take this verse to mean that. But here's what this verse means. Again, this verse is taking you back to the Old Testament. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Take your brother to the law, take your brother to the church, take your brother. Again, it's telling you, if you bind up hatred, when you come to your spiritual awakening and you discover the kingdom of heaven that is within you, and that you are already there, you are going to carry that hatred with you. If you haven't loosened that hatred on earth, if you haven't loosened that disagreement, that dispute, if you haven't let go and carry around grudges with you on earth, if you haven't loosened that stuff on earth, when you come into your spiritual awakening, when you discover the kingdom of heaven that you are, and where you have been and always are and will forever always be, you will not have loosened that stuff. You will not have released that stuff that needs to be released. You need to bind companionship, friendship, love, forgiveness in your life so that when you come to your spiritual awakening and discover the kingdom of heaven and start using the creative power, you don't have that binding grudges, anger, hate, and whatnot associated to your discovery. Because then you will just throw up your hands in the air and you'll say, spirituality is nonsense. I've discovered the kingdom of heaven. I've had union with God, and yet I can't rid myself of this anger. I can't rid myself of this confrontation. You will slowly and slowly, you will release it. You will loosen it and let it go. And you will bind onto yourself love and peace and harmony and passion and compassion, I should say, and forgiveness. Forgiveness is the greatest thing. Forgiveness loosens 1,000,001 things that you may be bound in you of the world and the experiences of the world and judging by appearances. Doesn't matter if he's the most evil person in the whole world. Doesn't matter if he's slaughtered a whole city. It doesn't matter. It's not your place to judge him. He will be judged. You don't like that thing, you don't like that situation, forgive him for what he's done and walk away. Distance yourself from him. Do not bind that judging by appearances unto yourself, because then when you come into your awakening, you're going to have to face that. And then you're going to have trouble loosening it. Although you will loosen it, it will be problematic, because I speak from experience. There was things that I held on to, and I came into my spiritual awakening, and I was filled with anger and with hate and remorse and with all sorts of stuff for the things people did to me. And it took me a while. And it'll take about 3.5 years. The whole process is about 3.5 years. But through that process, I don't think you'll get it in your first spiritual awakening, but you will in your second one. You will definitely get it in the second one. And then you will loosen the things that you have held on to, your grudges and your hates and your angers, and you will bind onto yourself the things that are meaningful: love, peace, harmony, joy, happiness, health, prosperity. Do unto others as you wish done unto yourself. Help those who are less fortunate. Give of your spiritual gifts to another who has no understanding of spirituality or the spiritual gifts, and let them discover something for themselves. You will be the teacher. And in order to be the teacher, in order to walk in those steps, you have to loosen what you bound up through your earthly travels. Your prejudices, and that's basically in a nutshell is what it's saying, is like, let go of your prejudices, because you bind prejudices onto yourself. You judge by appearances. You have to let go of those prejudices, loosen them. So whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. And you'll come to your spiritual awakening. Everyone will. You'll come to a spiritual awakening, and it'll be painful and it'll be hurtful. And you'll look around at the people that think that you are nuts, going crazy, hallucinating, talking nonsense and talking crap. And you will, because you'll still be part of the world, want to bind all of those faces as you see them and put them in your heart and, think that you've had a spiritual awakening without loosening the attachment of the anger, the prejudice, the judgment, the judging by appearances. Again, this verse here, really, you have to go back to verse 3, Matthew chapter 18, and see where it begins, if you're looking at it from a contextual perspective. But I doubt very much you will see what I just said to you from a contextual experience, a contextual perspective, because you will read it along and you will say, oh, little children, that's great. It means to love the little children. Don't touch the little children. Anyone who touches the little children. Yes, there's a message of that in there also. But the greater message in that is you have to become like a little child. Little child doesn't have prejudices, forgives automatically, doesn't know what forgiveness is. And that is the greatest thing in the world, because it just loves unconditionally. Has companions and friends, whether they're visible or invisible, doesn't depend on anyone, is not codependent on anything until the education, that parental upbringing, starts seeping into their mind. A child You have to become like a child with the things that you are binding and loosening. You have to bind all the things that are like a little child, I should say, and you have to loosen all of those things that the sleepwalk and the amnesia and the world has given you. The prejudices, the judgment, the judging by appearances, the condemning this person and that person, hating this person and that person for the things they have done. This whole world is a drama, is a play. And that person who is the most horrible person, who may have laid his hands and done horrible things to children, is playing a part. That is still God asleep in that person. But it is not your place to judge that person. That's the thing. Because then every little judgment you make, you are binding on yourself. And what you bind on yourself is bound in heaven. And when you come to that spiritual awakening and the discovery of heaven, union with God, you will realize that you've also bound hatred and anger and resentment and judging and disputes and all the evils of the world. And you have to loosen those things. And the one example here is the little children. Loosen it like little children. And the other example here is verse 19, which is, when you see it spiritually, is a spiritual message. And it is the greater message here, that if two people shall agree, if two people come to a quick outcome quickly, then it shall be done for them. And it is set in stone. And it is no different than little children. If you come to, if two people come asking for the same thing and wanting the same outcome and all of that stuff, as it says in verse 19 here, you automatically release what was bound up. It is automatically happens. But if two people don't come to an agreement, then you're binding that dispute. You're binding that prejudice. You're binding that judgment on you. You're not releasing it in order to bind forgiveness, to bind acceptance, to bind recognition of the reflection, which is God in every single person. The reflection of God in you, in another. The reflection of God in another, that is you, and whatnot, etc. It is a really complicated verse to understand, verse 18, but it's really easy, I believe, through spiritual awakening, to see the multifaceted principles of this chapter here. You can see the contextual verse, and if you don't want to accept the spiritual message, as most religious people don't, they don't want to accept any type of spiritual message. They have set in stone an education system that they preach from the podiums of organized religion. But if you are reading it that way, then you are on your way if you completely understand and tie in the whole chapter and understand how the whole chapter ties in. I truly believe you're on your way to spiritual awakening. But more than anything, you are capable now through understanding the whole chapter and not just this verse, that verse, and the other verse that you pick and choose what suits you and whatnot. When you understand the whole chapter and how the whole chapter ties in together, then you can be a teacher. As Paul says, there's apostles, there's prophets, there's teachers, there's etc., etc., etc. But in order to be a teacher and be on your way to having a spiritual awakening, which I truly think this is the right way, is you have to take everything in context. You have to see the whole contextual and narrative of the author and see how the author is bringing you into the Old Testament, then absolving the whole Old Testament, bringing you into the new awakening, the New Testament, the new age, and telling you there is no need for the old stuff. There is no need for the grudges. There is no need for the judging of appearances. There is no need for persecuting your brother. You forgive your brother 1,000,001 times, a gazillion times, a sextillion and one times. It doesn't matter. Everyone in the world is your brother and your sister. Everyone is a reflection of you. Everyone carries the Spirit of God. You may be awake, that person isn't. You being awake, you have to buy forgiveness and loosen the things of the world that you once had. And you have to be able to forgive. You have to be able to overlook. You have to be able to distance yourself and understand that by distancing yourself and using the principle in verse 19 that you and yourself can speak to one another and get the outcome you want. That's imagination, that's visualization, etc., etc. But I think it is important to see this verse, and you won't see it this way until you come to a spiritual awakening. When you have your spiritual awakening and say you travel down the road of the Bible like I did, because all of my revelations, all of my dreams, all of my mystical experiences, all were found in the Bible, and still to this day can be found in the Bible. When I have the spiritual glimpses here and there that I have, I know that is coming from, not that it's coming, but I know I can find it in here. I know one of these people, one of these authors here has left a testimony of what I am experiencing right now, and I can find it and say, I am a witness to what is written here. Whoever, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Peter, Paul, James, Jude are, Mary, Susanna, whoever they are, I can find the parallel to what I'm experiencing in my life and say, I am a witness to this. And I think when you come into your spiritual awakening, this whole verse here will make sense from a contextual perspective, but more so than anything else, a spiritual perspective. And always keep in mind that although here there's a reference to 2 or 3 people, again, that's going back to the law. That's going back to the Old Testament. And then it's bringing you back into the New Age. And it's telling you the Old Testament and the law is abolished. Doesn't mean that you don't follow the law, but it means when you have a spiritual awakening, when you come to this New Age, when you discover heaven, you are a completely different being. You are in the world, but you're not of the world. And you have discovered the greater you that you are than the you that you were in the world. So this verse is important to take it into complete context and understand it. And more so, it's very important to see it from a spiritual perspective. It's important to see the breaking down of the Old Testament and the law, and to understand the principles of spiritual awakening, and to understand forgiveness, and how to loosen the things on earth that need to be loosened, and bind the things in heaven that were bound on earth. And that binding, as I said, is all the negativity you have bound to yourself. And what you loosen on earth will be loosened in heaven. So loosening all that negativity and replacing it through your spiritual awakening with harmony, peace, love, joy, happiness. Not judging by appearances, letting go of prejudices, hate, anger, disturbances, no matter how you feel about them. That is the most important message here. And in a nutshell, it's really doing away with the old and understanding and developing and growing, maturing, expanding in consciousness, spirituality, in the divine nature of you truly are. Anyways, this is Nick. This is Tea Talk. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you guys next time.